Telling stories has an important place within African communities. By telling stories to one another, the culture is passed on and kept alive. Stories don't only have an important function in African culture, they are also wisdoms passed on from generation to generation.
This is a reflection of my personal experiences here in Africa.
Kgotla, meeting of minds. Many people would not immediately associate economic success with Africa, nor would they expect to learn anything from countries like South Africa or Botswana. And yet there is every reason to do so. The economy of Botswana has been outperforming Asia and America for decades, whilst maintaining its cultural identity.
Everybody has the ability to create a future and to make a difference.
Recently, South African leaders faced the challenge of peaceful transformation successfully and implemented fundamental decisions made by the people. Diversity and independence are important factors because the best collective decision is the product of disagreement and contest, and not consensus or compromise. A great example of this was the Kliptown community in Soweto, where people from over 12 diverse ethnic backgrounds lived together peacefully.
This was a home for everyone. Let this history be documented.
Leadership through dialogue leads the way to innovative ideas and solutions.
I like to call South Africa an experiment. That is an experiment in democracy, it's an experiment in peace, it's an experiment in dialogue, it's an experiment in terms of negotiation, an experiment in trying to learn other people who are different from you.
The Freedom Charter was formulated during a very large Kgotla, consisting of delegates from all corners of South Africa. They gathered here in Soweto, expressing their desire to live under conditions of peace and stability.
Die Kliptown is hier die wortel van alles. Alles het hier ontstaan. As jy praat van Chato Square, Kliptown, dan is dit hier.
It's a great opportunity for us, and being together with some outsiders, people who are not from our country. The spirit is the greatest spirit that we can have, a joint forum together. This communication must never end up here.
Constitutional Hill was previously the old fort prison, where Mandela and Gandhi, among many others, were imprisoned. This constitutional court is now the guardian and custodian of freedom, equality and human dignity.
The judges decided we wanted our court to be here, to get the connections between the past and the present. We don't deny the pain of the past, but we don't live in the past. And so that negative energy, that intense negativity is acknowledged and converted into positivity. And now we collaborate together, and it's the Constitution that enables us to do that.
Many of the principles of the Freedom Charter still remain applicable today and are contained in South Africa's Constitution, the most progressive in the world.
In African culture, there's a thing called a Kgotla, and they've taken that name actually now, and that's also the name for a court. So you would find outside, they would say a Kgotla. This is one of the 11 official languages or words for court. And what they used to do then, like in the foyer, the tribe or the village would sit underneath the tree and they discuss problems. And they try and make the environment conducive for a heated debate. So it's leadership by consent and by representation. Academically, it's not that kosher to argue that some rights are more important than others, but you would find that at least the right to equality, the right to life, and the right to dignity seems to feature more paramount than other rights.
This participative democracy has many lessons for the world. All stakeholders may participate and influence the direction of dialogue on a continual basis. The peaceful transformation of South Africa was a source of inspiration for the De Liefde family. And when they moved to the African continent, they tapped into this ancient wisdom and learned from the local Kgotlas. The balance between inner strength and the collective wisdom embodied in communities is spiritually enriching. It draws from their ancestors in order to create a way of living that has meaning. This inspired writer Willem de Liefde to create the book Kgotla, The Art of Leadership Through Dialogue.
What the world has to learn is to reconnect their unconsciousness to the consciousness, so that we get a much better platform, and that we can learn from the philosophies of Ubuntu, what we can learn from the powerful tool, what you call Kgotla. Kgotla leads you to the way of dialogue, and dialogue is a much more efficient way of living, of sharing, for leadership than you ever have felt in the world.
The book Kgotla, Leadership Through Dialogue, shows a modern perspective on how communities can enhance their identity and give meaning to work and life. The book enlightens one on the importance of leadership during the decision-making process. Immersing yourself in a foreign culture stimulates personal growth and may lead to a life-changing experience. The open atmosphere in which the exchange of ideas takes place creates new energy that leads to inspiration and new creative solutions with which everyone can identify. And what better place to learn from the power of nature than right here in the cradle of mankind, where 2.5 million years ago our ancestors walked. The world needs a healing lung, and nature is the ultimate classroom.
Knowing where we come from helps us to understand how to perceive our current reality and environment. So people can ask themselves, what contribution can I make to the organization?
This type of yellow.
By understanding our identity, we can give meaning to work and life and so build strong communities with a long-term vision. Commissioned by Willem de Liefde in 1993, these impressions of the universal life cycle, created by Dutch artist Jan Montaigne, provides fascinating insights into identity, meaning, and community development, as well as awareness of our deep inner motivation. The spiral energy generated by the Kgotla process is a powerful tool to re-energize communities, teams, and individuals. Sharing the truth is a way of developing collective energy and creating passion in your life. Small groups join to share their beliefs and act together to solve problems. Everyone is invited to participate in the meeting and voice his or her opinion.
En ik probeer dat wel te bevorderen door ze met elkaar mee te laten lopen. Maar zodra ik ze allemaal bij elkaar heb, dan val ik in een valkuil. Want dan ga ik echt autoritair leiderschap uitoefenen. Om de boel maar te behappen. Om maar 60 van die dames te kunnen managen, heb ik dan het gevoel.
Dat is op dit moment bij mij niet het geval. Dat iedereen zich gehoord voelt. Dus dat is natuurlijk de eerste stap.
The chief listens attentively to everyone's opinions and asks questions. The process of open communication has started, and it's the chief who takes the final decision.
You are in a place today that resembles the most evil and painful of South African society. But because we talk, it has been used also as a forum of talking, of getting into conversation. And look at this, it has changed. You come in here and you don't feel this was once a prison. There's a warmth and a feeling around here of togetherness, of unity. All emerging from a little thing that we have ignored, that's called talking, having a conversation. Nations should come together and begin conversations.
They have to travel to
Yes, for example, you take 10 cases to just do a class.
Because through conversations you begin to understand each other. You begin to understand the differences, but you also begin to understand the similarities.
Through that structure, that development, we have tried a lot to empower.
If there's any lesson that South Africa can give to the world, it is about that. We are great in this thing of ironing out our differences, of talking about the past, of talking about our wills. That's what we're great at. And through that process, we have begun to heal the nations.
first welcome the Deputy Minister of Health of South Africa, Mrs. Kgotla. Thank you very much for being here and giving us the honor of your presence.
Thank you for inviting me to this masterclass. The organization that has helped put this together for you is called the Kgotla. And for us, that's a very important concept, which I hope you take back with you if you haven't, of consultation, of dialogue. But the solutions to our problems are with the people. We cannot sit up there and say, here's the plan, and give it to the country as government. Your visit here, coming from the various hospitals in your country that you come from as the leadership and the management, I say some of you are presidents of the boards, some of you are CEOs and managers, is really to provide an opportunity for an exchange.
I think South Africa has lessons in terms of what people should not do, and lessons also about what people should do.
It was a bit of a roller coaster. We were, swapped around from one part of the city to the other.
No matter how powerful you think you are, the power of staff is just phenomenal. And I don't think that's unique to South Africa. I think that's anywhere in the world.
Leadership, as we see it, is the ability to contribute to the ability of the community to create their own futures. And that's why South Africa is so important. You showed that leadership is about passion, not power. It's about talking, not positioning. It's about transforming, not designing.
The notion of, for the majority of people, the notion of that the organization is bigger than ourselves, right? And that we in fact exist for the organization. And the moment you start believing that you're more powerful than the organization, it's actually time for you to move on. And when people start believing that they're superhuman and that somehow in their own minds they feel that everyone supports them, and then you start losing it and you go completely off the rail. And if you try to understand what is it that people are concerned about, you'll often find, but no one taking the trouble to tell us what is going on. And perhaps if you told us where you're going to, we'll all get onto the bus with you. Now obviously, if I don't know where you're going to, why would you think that I would board the bus?
The rhythm of life here is often supported by rituals. Rituals can be used to support the identity of people and companies. They generate energy, provide meaning to events, and create memorable moments to reflect on. Rituals bond communities.
I really wish this love can grow within myself, and this love can really go through within my children's heart. The same love that I got from Somoho, it can go through Soweto. It can go through the four corners of this world.
We would request all the remaining people from the corners of the world to come closer to the circle.
What I wish by means of these two children to keep the strength and the belief to build a better world.
Africa's gift. Wat wij hier hebben gekregen.
Hier komt nog de vlag van Zuid-Afrika.
And now we're going to hear your presentations about how this week has impacted on you. And your wishes, your intentions, your goals and objectives in transforming your own community.
I will empower the colleagues to build together a solid community that isn't there now.
So they are empowered to come out of the situation and start their own businesses, become small local entrepreneurs.
What I personally found here is my power within, and not to give up and be patient with other people in their process.
Leadership starts at grassroots level, so it's right at the bottom. And so you're able to go back and say, well, look, we've learned in Africa that it starts at the bottom rather, and it moves up.
Africa gave me hope, and it teared down my rational wall so I can let in my emotions.
The best way for a group to develop collective wisdom is for each person to think and act as independently as possible. The world is in search for a new balance between individualistic thinking, I am because I think, and the collective power of the community, I am because we are.
That's why Professor Bonstra, Wilhelm Martin brings you to Africa, because at least in Africa, that sense of saying I am because you are, that I'm not alone in an island, is still to a great extent still there. It is the spirit of togetherness that solves our problem today. It is not the spirit of being individualistic and negative or saying it's not my problem.
The challenge is to move closer to the perspective of how can I as an individual fit into the organization and community around me? Am I willing to have my views called into question and become part of the we?